All right, we are live. Good morning, Wendi. Good morning, Aton. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Good. All right, so I'd like to introduce Wendi Weisman, attorney in Delray Beach, Florida. We had some requests to have an attorney on today. So the purpose of today's, who would really benefit from watching this, is going to be somebody who is looking for an attorney for some sort of work right now. Specifically, what we've been focusing on are people that are settling estates. So they've unfortunately had a loved one that's passed, may not even have a property, but they need an estate settlement. They need some guidance, advice on that. So today's video is going to be, anywhere from 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than that. But Wendi is going to introduce herself, her law firm, give some history on that, and just talk just a little bit about the estate process. So take it away, Wendi.
Okay, well, thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Aton, for the opportunity to speak to your peeps out there that will be listening to us. And maybe we could impart some of our knowledge that we have or some of our war stories. Um, so, as you said, I'm Wendi Weisman. My office is in Delray Beach. It's the law office of Harold Weisman. This law firm has been in Florida, in Delray Beach, since 1978. I know I look great, don't I, for that age? But I was not a lawyer in 1978. My father is a lawyer and was a lawyer in 1978 and moved my family to Florida from Massachusetts and opened up a law firm in Delray. And several years later, in the 1990s, I became an attorney, 1991, and joined his law firm and have been here ever since. My father is now retired, and it is my firm. There are 3 attorneys in this law firm. We handle real estate, title insurance, probate, estate planning. We do some corporate work, and we represent some HOAs. So we have a little smattering of knowledge across the board, enough to be able to either answer a question or be smart enough to know that it is not in our expertise and send you to the proper party. One thing this law firm does not specialize in is door law. We will never be door law attorneys. And a door law attorney, what is that? That is an attorney who thinks they can practice anything that walks through that door. That is not what this law firm does. What we do well. What we don't do, we will absolutely send you to the right parties. My father started practicing law many, many, many years ago. And I'll tell you a quick little story about my dad. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, Gabe or Aton, but my father, many, many, many years ago, way before I was a little tiny child probably at the time, he was an attorney, and he was an assistant state's attorney for the state of Massachusetts. And he worked in the attorney general's office. And his claim to fame case is the one that we all rely on right now to this day. Every single one of us should thank my father, because my father's first case that he won for the state of Massachusetts is the case that, excuse me, not Massachusetts, for the federal government in the state of Massachusetts, was to limit your credit card liability to $50 if your credit card is lost or stolen. And that law is still good law right now. And that law came from my father. So that is where I come from, background and from there. And now my dad's retired and enjoying the retirement days, and I run this law firm. And with respect to the gentleman I'm with, met you several years ago, doing real estate transactions and probate transactions with your company, and watching your company, explode on the marketplace. It's been really a very proud moment for me to watch. You guys are awesome, honest, and I guess that's probably the best thing I can say is that this law firm specializes in honesty and integrity. We are as transparent as an attorney can be with transparency, and we really don't associate ourselves, nor take a chance of ruining our reputation with anybody or any parties we do not believe have the same core values as this firm does. And so, not to be blowing smoke up butts here, I will say that the 2 gentlemen on the screen with me have that integrity that would let me put my name on a screen at the same time as them, for even any discussion. So thanks, guys, for including me in today.
That's awesome.
Thank you,
And
Wendi.
Aton, if you'll share back anything that you remember about when we first came in contact with the law firm, whenever that was, and what your impression was based on previous law firms that we had been working with. Obviously, we'll just focus on what we're talking about here right now. But what do you remember from that? What was that experience like?
Well, I'll say, first of all, thank you again, Wendi, for the kind words. But it's really kind of cool that we get to work with an all-female firm. So everybody in the firm, all the attorneys and all the support staff, they're all females, and so I think it lends itself to working in this area. Handling estates and handling wills and things like that, maybe a little bit more of a gentle touch, a little bit more compassionate. Not to say that Wendi, when you need to turn it on and tell it like it is, I think you deliver it really well. So I think what's very special about working with your firm is the attention that we get. Look, we know that we're not your only clients, but we have total access to anybody in your firm for whatever we need, and that goes for our clients as well. So we've worked with other title companies before and other attorneys. Getting them on the phone is always a challenge. Getting the answers that we need in a timely manner is always a challenge. Because it's just the nature of being in business. You can't prioritize everybody, but I feel like we have like the red phone that when we pick that up and we get in touch with you guys, we get either what we need or what our clients need to be able to advance their file or our business.
Well, I do feel that they all have the same agenda, and that is real estate really is not supposed to be adversarial. And so if something is not supposed to be adversarial, we all go into it in the proper manner, which is you want to sell something or you want to buy something, get to a contract, we get a meeting of the minds of both sides, we codify that, which is put it in writing. We have everybody have an opportunity to read that writing, feel that writing, touch that writing. And afterwards, if this is the agreement, sign their signature. Therefore, at the beginning of a transaction, there should be no adversarial position whatsoever, or you know what? Don't get into the contract.
And yeah, that was kind of my point on what I was going back to, Aton, on when we first met her, right? There was an issue. I don't know. Do you remember? There was, we came across because she was on the other side of the closing table for another closing that we had. And you had come to me. I'll tell the story. Aton had come to me and said, man, I am really impressed by this other side that we're working with right now. They have their stuff together. They're right on point. They're communicative, and they're extremely knowledgeable. And that really resonated. I remember as Aton handles a lot of the transaction stuff, and that's, to Aton's point, that's what we've seen, and that's awesome, Wendi. So
absolutely, thank you.
So as far as estates, so somebody has a loved one that's passed away. What are some common questions that you hear from people when they call the law office, and what kind of guidance could you give them, just surface level?
Well, you know what you find when someone passes away? If the family member that passed away was not communicative in life, you find family members that are absolutely running around like chickens without heads, not knowing which end is up, and yet they still haven't even buried the person yet. So, it's very, very important that before you even unfortunately get to the point where you are the dead person or the family member left behind, to take some responsibility while you're alive for your own family or your friends if it's not family, and not leave disasters. But when there are disasters, which is frequent, then we need to take steps to fix those disasters. So if someone dies with a will, the family member should contact a lawyer. There's a name in a will that's called nominated as a personal representative. That's a gender neutral term for an executor, the person that's going to manage the administration of this estate when the court says it's okay. It's a court proceeding. that's probate. I know you guys had a lecture on probate, and I encourage people to go back and look at all these series, because there's going to be a lot of great information that's come out and that will come out, and it's helpful for people. So we're not going to get into a whole discussion of what probate is, but when a person passes, after the family members present the will, we go through a probate process. If the family member that passed did not have a will, you have to go through a different process. And usually, or typically, there's a piece of real estate, a house, a home. If that home was the person's primary residence in Florida, we call that homestead. That is their property. It can't be taken away from them by creditors, except for certain ones, and that's discussed in the homestead lecture. But the reality is that if you find yourself in a position where the family member died and the property was in that individual's own name at death, you are going to need assistance. Period. There's no way you're going to move forward without some assistance, whether it's determining who the beneficiaries are, or it is you need assistance because you don't know what to do. The house is underwater, and the creditors are calling you, and it's your cousin's property you're inheriting, and you don't, the disaster, and there's code liens, and you don't know what to do. You're pulling your hair out. You can call my office after you call Gabe and Aton. They will direct you properly as to what to do with your property. They can do things with your property that you wouldn't dream of doing with your own property, because you don't have the wherewithal, the finances, or the backbone to take the risk. And that's life. And so once we determine a direction, I see it so often, the veil of scaredness, the veil of concern starts to lift off of these backs of these people. It's really when we know we've done a service. We're not just, oh, we're buying your house or we're doing this. We realize that we're offering a service where it's almost akin to giving a counseling service that culminates in hopefully unloading that property from your family in whatever manner is best for your family, whether it is to unload it directly out to an Aton or Gabe company, or whether it is to have them facilitate an end buyer, whether it is to help direct you to keep your property. We don't know until we look at the situation that you're in, but it's really nice to know, do I have a direction I can go when my mother has died and I walked in the house and found out she's a hoarder? What do I do? What do I do? I know that my dog had an accident in the house, and I looked at her, she put her face in it, and I was like, what do I do with the dirt on the face? I can't even imagine having to deal with the hoarding situation, or the mold infested situation, or the code enforcement situation, or the rodent situation. And sometimes when you take that and you add it to everything else you're dealing with, it becomes overwhelming. And so when there's somebody out there that can alleviate that and treat you fairly and with dignity, I watch that veil lift, and it helps that portion be much, much easier.
Yeah, that's awesome. And really at the end of the day, as it relates to somebody who's out there right now trying to get information on what to do, where do I start, where do I go? Obviously, there are a ton of questions. We highly recommend, we have a ton of information that we can help give to people. But at the end of the day, sometimes people won't even have property, right? So would it be more simple for somebody who doesn't have any property at all, meaning real property, and maybe just, what about debt? I think that's a big thing that I hear. They say, hey, I don't want to be responsible for this. So is there any responsibility related to settling an estate if they know that their loved one was in a large amount of debt and they're afraid of that coming back to them somehow?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are processes in the probate world that we can do. One of them would be orders determining homestead. And once we determine a property is homestead, then it can pass to the lineal descendants. And a lot of those creditors that we're afraid of get knocked out. They're just knocked out. They don't have a leg to stand on. So there is definitely some hope in a lot of these situations. Not every creditor can be discharged. Obviously, there are certain creditors that are just not going to be discharged. And I think that the average person can use their imagination and figure out you're probably not going to get rid of the IRS. If we could get rid of them, I'm sure a lot of people would be in line. So there are certain creditors you're not going to get rid of. Are you going to get rid of your lender? No, but you know what? Why should you get rid of your lender? You borrowed the money. The house should be sold. The lender should be reimbursed. If the water property is underwater, meaning that it's owed more money to the lender than the property is worth, obviously then you need to speak to an attorney, to a company like yours that can help guide someone, whether it is savable for the family with any type of funds going to the family, or whether it just needs to just go back to the bank. I really think that real estate is a very unique situation. Even though we can live in a neighborhood that looks cookie cutter to us, every other house looks the same. The ownership of real estate is very individual per person. I know a lot of times during estate planning, I'll say to a client, please do me a favor. Stop listening to the legal advice given around the swimming pool. It's just not good legal advice. And it's not that the people don't mean well. The problem is we're not a cookie cutter world, and we're not cookie cutter people. And every single one of us has a different story. And based on our story, whether we're married, whether we're single, whether we have parents, whether we want to support children, whether we're of a certain age, whether we have certain finances, we have individual needs that need to be tailored individually to us. So probably the best thing you can walk away from today from me is don't take legal advice from someone around a swimming pool.
Good.
Even in Florida.
Good advice, Wendi. So interestingly enough, I'd say more often than not, when we bring a file to your office and we're working with the family of somebody who's passed away, who owns property, two things. First, oftentimes there's no will. And so then we're left to try and figure out, okay, who inherits the property, number one. And number two, sometimes it's contentious between the different beneficiaries. So when you're left, when you're a potential beneficiary of a property, and let's say the house is going to foreclosure, or maybe you have a sibling living there, but now you're left to kind of, maybe you're the mature sibling, and you're trying to handle an estate. You say, well, my family member didn't leave a will, and I don't get along with my siblings. Now what do I do? How am I going to fix this mess?
Well, and the word mess is a really very nice word to use for it. Sometimes it can be an absolute mess. And the reality is that is why we go through the process to determine the heirs of the estate. And that is another court proceeding that we go through, where the court will determine who the actual lineal descendants of this person that passed away is. We pretty much can figure it out before we ever get to court. We do it the old-fashioned way. Take a piece of paper and draw a family tree. And sometimes those family trees are the most convoluted things. I even scratch and shake my head. I think you guys could probably think of the example I'm thinking of, where I literally drew a family tree and was even confusing myself. There were so many different moving parts. By the time we were actually at the bottom, so many people had passed away at different various stages. We had to figure out who was inheriting and who wasn't. And we ended up with multiple probates. So we can have some really interesting, I call these the law school or bar exam question type cases. And that's what I say sometimes when they bring them in. And I look at the file and I go, this is a law school or bar exam question file. I see this. And we take it, we look at it, we find out who the heirs are rightfully supposed to be. And then the fun starts. We try and get cooperation. And I have a fairly decent record of getting cooperation. And I think it's because I don't pull any punches. I tell you like it is. And I tell you to go and verify what I'm saying with any lawyer of your choice, because I'm not telling you a mistruth. So when I tell you it's the truth, it's the truth. You can go and check it. So most of the clients I've had the privilege of speaking with have been lovely. They've really just been lost. They've just been lost, or they've been hoodwinked by people that aren't reputable, or they're just suspicious, or their parent just wasn't forthcoming about anything and they know nothing. And so in those cases, we sometimes feel that they just need some hand holding. Now, do we have those files that we just can't get cooperation because we got stinkers? Greedy Gretas is what I call them. That's male and female. I'm not saying one or the other. Do we have them? Yeah. In a worst case scenario, we will have to advise the parties they're going to have to file a case in court, another case, and that's to partition the property. And that's basically to ask a judge to appoint a special magistrate to stand in the shoes of the person that doesn't want to cooperate, look at the whole picture, costing the whole family more money, for the judge to say, okay, the property should be sold and take this person's share and put it off. And so will we succeed? Most likely we will. Most likely we will, but will it cost the family additional funds? Yes. So do stinkers cause messes? Stinkers cause messes. They just do. So how do you avoid it? Hopefully don't end up in a position of having an estate that goes intestate. If you do, we're here to help maneuver and help and do what we can. And, sometimes, I don't know if you've been watching this one file that I have. I don't know if the girls in my office had mentioned to you, but there was a file we had. I don't want to mention names, but I reached out to the children and said, I know you don't like your dad, but you are in a position to sell the property, and Gabe and Aton are willing to assist you through this whole process. And they just were willy-nilly, nah, I don't know. And I kept saying, but you're running against a clock here. I've got a foreclosure date. You got to decide. Well, ultimately, I don't know if you guys know where I'm going with this, but last week, because I'm on the court file, I saw another petition has been filed since the property has been foreclosed on. And that is by the father that they didn't like. His lawyer has filed for the surplus money on the file. So the children, because they didn't want to listen to honest, good, and I liked those children. They were adult children. I spoke to them. I thought they understood that this was in their best interest. I could put money in their pockets. And they hemmed and hawed and didn't want to listen. And this is one of those cautionary tales. There was some money left over, which would have gone to them. And instead, that money is going to go back to the father that they wouldn't cooperate because they didn't want him to get anything. And now he will get the entirety of it. So putting your head in the sand is not an answer. Speaking to others, communicating what your wishes and desires are. We have an estate that we have been fighting with one person for forever. And you know what? It's a matter of money in this case. We came up with a couple of $1,000s extra. We call it blood money, but we're going to get the deal done. So it's negotiations. It's everybody putting their best into it, is what happens when you have these stinker mess files.
Wendi, excellent point right there. And I hate that this point may even get lost here at 24 minutes into the video, but many times and on current files that we're working on, you have a child or children who says, I don't want to be involved. I want nothing to do with this. Leave me out of it. But the problem is that the court requires them to state in writing by filing certain forms that they don't want to be a part of it. And the problem is that when they say that they don't even want to sign those forms, they're actually drawing themselves into the mess even further. So what would you advise those people who say, I want nothing to do with this, but I won't sign anything?
This is not going to go away. That's the problem. And when I hear from the children or the beneficiaries that say, leave me out of this, I don't want to have anything to do with it, it's because they really want to be left out of it. But the opposite is what's going to happen. And that's probably a very important point for you to make there, Aton, because it's the opposite that's going to happen. The more you tell me you don't want to participate, it's not going to make the law change. And that is important for people to say, I cannot change Florida law. You cannot change Florida law. There are things I'd love to change, but we're not going to change the law. So as long as this is the state of Florida, and as long as the Constitution of the state of Florida provides for homestead protection, children will need to cooperate. If they don't cooperate, all they are ultimately going to do is have lawsuits filed, people standing in there, but they're going to be served with everything. It's not going to stop the harassment of correspondence. Cooperating is a signature, and everybody goes away. I don't know. If the goal is to get me to go away, sign the papers and we go away. If the goal is to keep me in your life, then I guess don't cooperate, because we stay in your life until we give up and we file in court and we let a magistrate be appointed to take over your interests, because they're going to be a little bit more rational than you are. So there's only so long any party is going to go. And then there's those files that the family can't afford to go on any further because of the holdout. And it jeopardizes the entire property. I have a file right now that I have a trustee who is angry that he's a co-trustee and wasn't notified in enough time that the property was being sold. And so he's now refusing to sign the deed for closing on Monday. The problem is this buyer is aware of a special assessment that's coming for $30,000 and was willing to absorb it. The next buyer, if we lose this one, may not be willing to absorb a $30,000 special assessment. Therefore, this trustee is potentially costing the beneficiary $30,000, and we're talking about a 90-year-old woman in a nursing home. I have
Crazy.
I have a real problem with it. Yeah, it is crazy.
Well, Wendi, that's incredible. All that information, that's really good. Really helps out a lot. Anybody that has any questions or needs to schedule an appointment with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, our phone number is 561-498-0017. It's the law office of Harold Weisman in Delray Beach. If anybody's around this area, we're located between the Boys and the Girls Marketplace. You probably know us. We've been a fixture in this community since 1978. So a lot of people know us in the community, and stop on by. There's a bar next door. Stop by after you had a drink.
All right. Thank you so much, Eitan. Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and we'll talk to you guys later.
Have a great day. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.